to Cage Minds Uncensored. I'm your host, Micah Frankel. A shout out to Edwin Ruiz and Mac 10. That's MMACK10. Check them out on Facebook. Love the hats. Graffiti style designs. A great supporter of combat sports and combat sports athletes anywhere. Check them out on Facebook. You can also find Cage Minds Combat Sports News as our Facebook page. On Twitter and Instagram, it is Caged Minds MMA. Thanks for joining me this week. A busy week in combat sports. I mean, a crazy amount of events this past weekend. But first I wanted to start off with a couple things that have caught my attention. Last week, kind of slid under the radar, but one championship, the biggest mixed martial arts promotion in Asia, has formally announced that they will be starting a professional kickboxing league, inaugural event to feature a crazy super fight of Joe Nanawatt, the Lion Fights champion, against Italian Giorgio Petrosian. I mean, that's just a crazy, insane, awesome fight. If you're a kickboxing fan, if you've watched Muay Thai, just a ridiculously good matchup right out of the gates. Also, in the world of expansion, just recently, it's come out that Frank Mir, yes, member of the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix, who, if you have Fight TV, is a commentator for ACB Absolute Championship Berkut, has announced his intentions to become a bigger part of the ACB promotion and will now start being a promoter for the promotion, hoping to get the promotion more traction and more events here stateside, more competition for the UFC. This goes on top of already the intentions of Fight Nights Global and M1 other Russian promotions, ACB being a Chechenian promotion, but all of them trying to make a bigger global impact and even come over here to the United States. ACB did so once already in California, but talking about on a much more frequent basis. So this is our big news, again, in competition for the UFC. Not to mention the Pro Fighters League, which I feel they've already been making some huge moves. When you talk about this past week, I believe, just recently, we saw Will Brooks announce his intentions, and that's on top of Rashid Magomedov, who was a top 15 on the cusp of being a top 5 UFC lightweight contender. They're both going to be a part of that Pro Fighter League inaugural lightweight tournament. So there are other options, and it's a vast world of mixed martial arts out there. Whether it's kickboxing or MMA, there's a lot of different options. Which brings me to another story I saw, which I really didn't even dive into. I just glanced at the title and I passed by it. Saw something talking about, is the UFC in trouble in 2018, and can the UFC outlast boxing? And I just can't believe the thought that somebody would come up with of a promotion quite possibly outlasting a sport. The true questions should be, can MMA have as long a lifespan as boxing? That would be a better question. And with the growth globally, with promotions like One, with KSW, with we're talking about ACB, M1, Global Fight Nights, not to mention then the UFC, Bellator, the newly formed Pro Fighters League, all across the world, Combates America, LFA, MMA is a global sport. The NFL, you play football in a couple countries. The NFL has tried to expand their product over to London, to England. They have tried to expand it to Mexico. We know there's a Canadian version. There used to be an NFL Europe. But there's kind of just places where football is played, that form of football. Soccer football is another sport that is global. Baseball has made great strides. There's a World Baseball Classic, but it's still not everywhere. MMA, boxing, kickboxing, people fighting, you can find that no matter what landmass you are on. combat sports, it's global. So to say can one outlast the other, I think that they're obviously with boxing with its couple hundred years start will always be around. But can MMA take that slice of the pie, that slice of public notoriety? Can it garner its own slice of respect and possibly in its own way become a bigger sport than boxing? That would be a great topic. But that one wasn't out there. Just wanted to see if anybody else had seen it. Funny what writers will write these days. Can UFC outlast boxing? Well, you never know what the UFC is going to do, especially with so much competition coming in and with the way that WME is holding business. Seeing more and more people clamoring for what the Pro Fighters League is going to do. Fighters win championships and money and earn respect through competition in the ring, in the cage. That's what we really want to see as hardcore mixed martial arts fans. But what we're getting from the two biggest promotions, at least here in America, from the UFC and from Bellator, is a star-driven product. If you're not that star, we're not as driven. Keeping that in mind, Bellator recently, some cuts were made brought to light, basically. I could tell you already that Steve Garcia has not been with the promotion for a minute. The young Mean Machine, who is a prospect coming up. I swear, Steve Cazzola was a prospect just a couple fights ago, getting to get his teeth wet on the main card. He's also gone. Some veterans, L.C. Davis, Kendall Grove, Georgie Katahanian, a couple of those names that maybe pique some niche fans, all gone. Fernando Gonzalez, who went 7-2 in the promotion, but had troubles making weight, went against every big name that they wanted to put over. Talking about Carl Almas, so we're talking about Caro Parisian. We're talking about fighting Paul Daly in a kickboxing bout. I feel even with the weight cutting issues and not being really able to make welterweight, that Fernando Gonzalez was handed a little bit of a rough hand from Bellator, and I wish they would have kept him around. Felipe Lins and Francis Carmont are both gone. A little surprising to me on the fact that the light heavyweight division is not that deep, and to get rid of guys is a little surprising. But Nemkov took out Lins, and Carmont had already been beat up by every grappler that was better than him. Carmont, a big guy who used to shrink himself down in the UFC to make middleweight, found new life at light heavyweight and just got out-grappled by better grapplers in Bellator. Alexis DeFrays also on this list. You would have thought at one point she was a dark horse and it was a possibility to sneak her way into the Bellator women's featherweight title scene, but again, a fighter having problems making weight. I don't feel that Bellator really publicizes when fighters have the issues, but obviously they're showing their own brand of justice by not keeping these fighters around. So that was just a couple of things that I've noticed that went on around the combat sports scene that I wanted to point out. Now again, I said this was a crazy busy mixed martial arts weekend. Starting off my thoughts on this weekend, we'll start it off with Titan FC 48 on UFC Fight Pass. It was one of 4 events on Friday night. This one was from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You had 3 title fights. A great knee knockout also as Juan Perota hands Gustavo Ballart, who was undefeated, the Cuban wrestling representative, gets his first loss, caught a flying knee up the middle in the 3rd round. You have still a vacant welterweight title as Remy Hamad got hit with one of the most vicious low blows I've ever seen. Cup cracking, possibly something got pinched. A no contest there in a vicious one. We had another title fight. Rushman Mafio is still the Titan FC lightweight champion with a unanimous decision win. Able to take some abuse in the 1st round. Stalk his opponent down after that, landing heavy punches. And in the main event, Jose Shorty Torres, the top prospect not in the UFC. The UFC has got to sign this young man, the 125-pound, 135-pound champ from Thailand FC. Walks down Alberto Orlando Torres. Good jab. Great 1-2s. Works the body. Hard outside leg kicks. A good stepping in knee to the body. 1-2 to the body. And followed up then by left hook lever, right hook jaw, knockout in the first round. Torres said that Orlando did not have the skill to last against him. Torres walked through every shot, gets the knockout win, 7-0, and I believe now officially, according to some ranking systems in MMA, a top 20 flyweight. I would love to see Shorty Torres inside the octagon. The Chicago boy, the octagon lands there for UFC 225. Would love to see him make his debut. Jose Shorty Torres, a flyweight prospect. Remember, I keep talking about this young man. Ultra impressive with his striking, even with his grappling, a full aspect of credentials. LFA was in Texas, and as per seems to be the norm the last couple times in Texas, a huge night of action and a huge night for Fortis MMA. We had a highlight early. You can find it on cagedminds.com with the results for all of these events. Kevin Worth cracks Isaiah Gutierrez with a huge sweet chin music, snap side kick, super kick, what your terminology be, finishes the fight in the third round. Gutierrez chopped at Worth's legs early, went for takedowns hard, seemed to have 2 rounds in the bag, but got caught with this big kick. It was a battle of undefeateds, and Kevin Worth keeps his O. Alonzo Menifield wastes no time in taking Bryce Renatico to the ground and sinking in a rear naked choke, just out-muscling the former striker and not wanting to mess around with the dangerous boxer. Menifield, I mentioned last week, there is some talent at 205 pounds coming up the ranks. If you're the UFC, Bellator, PFL, someone scoop this young man up. A lot of potential in Alonzo Menifield. Ramirez Benjarm defeats Bail Williams, a rear naked choke. Another victory for Fortis MMA. Another sick product coming out of their system. And a welterweight to be reckoned with. Macy Barber barely kept on the card as opponents kept falling out. Khalil Thompson takes his fight on short notice, pulls guard, got hit, gives her back up, and Macy Barber sinks in a quick rear naked choke. Rapidly, before we know it, Macy Barber will be in Invicta and then taking that next step up to the UFC. I believe kind of taking the same path that we saw Mackenzie Dern go. In the co-main event, Damon Jackson wastes no time taking down Chris Pissarro and sinking in a arm triangle choke. Quick technical submission as Pissarro went lights out. Damon Jackson moving up to lightweight. The Leech has gotten better with his hands, has found his way into his submissions. Again, there's 3 options here that are real big. Even ACB, hope to see Damon Jackson on one of those big stages again. And Kyle Stewart, Jaleel Willis, battle of the undefeated welterweights in the main event. And it was Stewart with takedowns in the second and third round, getting the top position, keeps his undefeated mark with the victory. For all of your LFA 33 results, go to cagedminds.com. And again, don't forget about Alonzo Menifield, Macy Barber, Damon Jackson. They're going to be in big fights, even Kyle Stewart, before you know it. A lot of top prospects, the top feeder organization in the world, LFA on Access TV. Love watching the showcases that they put on. Bellator was up in Connecticut at the Mohegan Sun Arena. Bellator 194. You had Taiwan Claxton, who shook the internet in his debut with a huge flying knee, this time displaying his wrestling, taking down Jose Antonio Perez and grounding pounding to victory. Vadim Nemkov, the Fedor Emelianenko protege, just devastates Liam McGeary with a plethora of leg kicks. He went to the calf kick, he went inside, he went outside. He went with the kick to the patella, the side kick. Nemkov just destroys Liam McGeary, who McGeary shows off his toughness, surviving all the way into the third round. Couldn't get out of the at last moment, took a side kick, and nearly just walked away, falling down. Ultra tough, but Liam McGeary has lost 3 in a row from being the world champion and submitting Tito Ortiz to now having been out-grappled twice, which seemed to be his Achilles heel. This time, no remedy for the low kicks. Back to the drawing board from Liam McGeary. Nemkov, the only lightweights that are not involved in this heavyweight tournament would be Nemkov and Phil Davis. So let's make that fight happen. In the co-main event, yes, I'm going to skip over that women's fight. That was horrendous. Let's not mention their names. Bellator has tried a little too hard to push over some people, and it's not doing anybody any favors. It's like watching amateur MMA, and when you're Bellator, it's just a little hard to watch. They both needed more experience. But let's go to the co-main event. Patrick Freire, Derek Campos, the rematch, the number 1 contenders bout. They came out, they threw leather, they throw at the same time. Campos lands a right hook. Seems to be really hard. Sounds like it is. Freire's left hook lands even harder. A knockdown. Campos glancing uppercut again staggers Campos. And then you have a swarming Freire with hooks, gets the stoppage. The winner of Brett Premise, Michael Chandler, their rematch. We'll see Pitbull Freire, a much more calm, tactical Pitbull that still has a major killer instinct. You wonder, has Pitbull done enough in his wrestling to be able to compete with Premise or with Chandler? That'll be his most glaring disadvantage going in against one of those high caliber wrestlers. And in the main event, Matt Mitrione stuck to a game plan, showed extraordinary athleticism, mixes in his low kicks with pitter-pat punches, even then mixed up the speed of his punches, showed great accuracy, did not throw any air balls, as it was said during the telecast. When Matt Mitrione wanted to land, he landed. Stuck to his game plan, moved around. But they're big guys, and big guys do get tired. So in each round, Mitrione did find himself in the bad position of getting taken down. In the third round, with Roy Nelson knowing he needed that round, he needed the stoppage, having that sense of urgency, he got the takedown early and nearly, almost Kimbo Slice-esque, got his crucifix position and nearly got the stoppage. Mitrione able to fight his way out of the position, scramble back to his feet, and finish the fight there. Great low kicks again, and a really strong ability to stay to a game plan. We've seen Mitrione kind of like to get into that firefight, and at Bellator 194, he kept moving and fought a very smart fight. Matt Mitrione, the Bellator Grand Prix heavyweight favorite. We also had Glory Kickboxing on Friday night. And in a stunning fight, I mean just craziness, Casey Green is able to knock down Omar Moreno in the first round with a hard right cross. Controls the second round with big pressure. And for 2.5 minutes of the 3-minute round, looks like Casey Green will be able to hold on for a decision win. But Moreno finds a big right hand, head kick, stumbling around Green, going after the kill, and then The ref jumps in for a standing 8 count. The problem is, there is no standing 8 counts in Glory. A front kick from Moreno hits Green, partially, maybe a toe to the chin, in the shoulder. The ref calls another knockdown. The ref jumped in with the 8 count call, stopping Moreno from possibly getting the finish. He might have been able to take care of Green right there inside of the regulation. But then, with the push kick knockdown call, it miraculously turns this into a 10-7 round for what looked like it was going to be a 10-9 round for Green, and a unanimous decision win becomes a 10-7 round for Moreno and sends us into a third round. Moreno, the fresher fighter, puts together his kicks in his punches, takes the extra round in a miraculous comeback. I mean, if you have UFC Fight Pass and you did not watch the Super Fight series for Glory 50, go back, check out Moreno versus Green. Crazy 12 minutes. The main event, Sitthichai Sitsampilong is still the Glory lightweight champion. Vicious low kicks, a crazy hard right leg, just vicious work from his leg. Sitthichai, more aggressive than we've seen, and kind of putting an exclamation point on being the best kickboxer in the world, or at least the best kickboxer under the Glory forum. When you got to Glory 50, the ESPN main card, you had Benjamin Adabui with a big right hand taking out D'Angelo Marshall in the first round of the first semifinal of the 4-man heavyweight tournament. Guto Innocent would take a decision from Junior Tafa in the second semifinal, but a cut over the on the left eyelid of Innocent would send Tafa into the finals. Tafa, being already injured and exhausted for taking a plethora of kicks from Innocent, was just prey to Adabui, who would quickly take care of Tafa with devastating leg kicks. 34 seconds into round 2, and Tafa, just ultra tough, being able to get up after some of the kicks he took, surviving as long as he did. Richard Abraham, in the feature fight of the night, took unanimous decision from Malik Watson. When will guys learn that they cannot clinch in Glory? It is against the rules. You cannot do it. Thai fighters have a rough learning curve in this sport. And then for more controversy, in the main event, Harut Grigorian defeats Murdo Grunhart. No controversy from the two fighters, but possibly a controversial stoppage. I mean, Grigorian with a big right hook to the body. Wolf Grunhart is against the ropes, hurts Grunhart, left hook to the head, right hook to the body, another right hook comes in over top, a left hook misses, and we have a knockdown. Grunhart able to get back up, beats the 10 count. Grigorian stalks in for the stoppage, big pressure throwing shots. A slightly wobbled Grunhart, still not fully having his balance, moves away, and the ref jumps in between. An awkward stoppage in a world title fight. I mean, you have to knock the champ out in that situation. I thought Grunhart should have been allowed to keep going. This Glory welterweight title, since it was lost by Nicky Holtzkin, has kind of been bouncing around. You saw Cedric Doumbé had it for a while. He loses it to Grunhart. Not to mention Jason Wilness had his hands on it before Doumbé. Hot potato, the Glory welterweight title now in the hands of Harut Grigorian. So you had some kickboxing, you had some MMA, and then we'll cap off the weekend on Sunday night with UFC Austin, UFC Fight Night 126. Full results for all these events again up at cageminds.com. Oscar Piocha, big right hand, takes care of Tim Williams in the first round. You had Alex Moreno hurting Josh Berkman with a big right hand. Berkman shoots into a guillotine, gets choked out. Roberto Sanchez does what he does, pressures Joby Sanchez big, is able to get on the back and find the rear naked choke. Impressive stuff when you're able to rear naked choke a guy with one arm. Never got that second arm, only the choking arm under Jeff Neal. Way to make it debut. Big power punching and being able to fight off the guillotine attempt to slip around, take the back of Brian Camozzi and get a submission. I fear for Brian Camozzi, this could be the last time we see him in the UFC. It could be back down to LFA for him. Diego Ferreira proves that there are just some black belts that have ungodly skills and wrist control. Taking Jared Gordon's arm and twisting it behind his back, dropping Gordon with a punch, and following up with taking the post arm, putting it behind his back, flipping Gordon over, and ground and pounding out. Welcome back, Diego Ferreira. Sage Northcutt is able to outpoint fight Thibaut Gouti. The triple quadruple jab of Northcutt and the constant early leg attacks, enough on the judges' scorecard, even though Thibaut Gouti, GT, scored some knockdowns, looked to have Northcutt hurt in the first and second rounds, definitely won the second round with his top control, but the first and third rounds the judges give to Super Sage, the now Team Alpha Male product. Brandon Davis versus Steven Peterson, the fight of the night, well-deserved bonus for both of them. Went out there, slugged it out. Both guys leave with battle scars. Both guys leave bloody. Davis showing off a great in and out, though. In with his striking, out avoiding big comebacks. Yes, he did get marked up. Showed off great straight punches, great crosses, not full hooks, but just firing them off with a little bit of an angle, using the right and left hand. The right counter was on. Vicious step in knees. Brandon Davis, very much fun to watch. From his Contender Series fight to that duel in Boston with Kyle Bosniak to this victory, a lot of fun to watch. A featherweight to keep an eye on. That featherweight division, as I continue to tell you, just crazy amounts of talent coming up. Talking about coming up and making an impact, Curtis Millender is in the UFC and he knocks out former title challenger Thiago Alves. Thiago Alves, the much smaller fighter. Millender able to utilize his long weapons very well. His straight punches, his straight kicks. He keeps people at his range, at his distance. A flat-footed guy, but with explosive fast twitch muscles. Marking up Alves with the striking early. The straight left caused the first knockdown. An uppercut Millender thought was the walk-off knockout. Could have cost him a finish at the end of the first round. A very good second round where the flying right knee, or step in right knee, seals the deal. Curtis Millender, very courteously, as his nickname is, does not go in for extra shots. The walk-off knockout, his third in a row. Two of them were big head kicks. Now this step in knee. You don't want to say the word, but you can say it. Potential star brewing. The UFC loves to throw those things around. But the UFC, for some reason, will not get behind James Vick. James Vick, the Texecutioner. Again, a big frame guy. Uses his long weapons very well. Not falling into the brawling of Francisco Trinaldo. Used the guillotine very well when he did hit the ground against the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Got back up. Again, guys using the step in knees. Very effective these days. From a Curtis Millender to a James Vick to Jose Shorty Torres. And I think this has all come a part of the effective knees started by Demetrius Johnson, hitting the guys in the liver, weakening down that body. James Vick did all of those very well. A dislocated pinky into the third round. James Vick takes that one off. But ranked at number 12, James Vick working his way up to those bigger fights. Interested to see where they match him up next. You can't get a finish every time out. James Vick, Another one of the things I like is he understands his style and he understands the importance of keeping his feet moving to not become a target for takedowns. The heavyweight division saw the co-main event, and this fight was sloppy and this fight was fun. In the first round, Derek Lewis gets a quick takedown. Not many guys can get out from under the Black Beast, but Marcin Tybura did. He swept. Tybura got on top, even got the mount position, but just this raw strength from Lewis, he's able to belly down, tripod up, fight off the legs, and just throw you off. That's the incorrect way to do it. You're supposed to tripod and shake the guy off over top. He got part of it right, but still a couple of things on the technical aspect missing from Derek Lewis. You wouldn't expect Tybura to be able to get out from under the 270-pounder probably on Fight Night, but Tybura was able to, but then get knocked down from a glancing right hand on the feet. A big first round from Lewis. The second round, Tybura imposes his will with takedowns. To the third round, where Tybura is dancing around, playing very well from the outside, using his long weapons, waiting for that big Derek Lewis explosion. We know that Lewis is kind of like a football player, where you line up, you play your play, you get to breathe a couple breaths, you go back, you do another play. Tybura decided to shut that down by again taking the fight into the clinch and looking for the takedown. Unfortunately, this time, though, Lewis would shrug him off, land two vicious right hands, dropping Tybura ground and pound for the finish, and back into the win column goes Derek Lewis. Next up for Derek Lewis, I think should be a meeting with Francis Ngannou. I know on UFC on Fox, on the post-fight, the suggestion was Curtis Blaydes. UFC 225. Of course, Curtis Blaydes needs a dancing partner. It's going to be in Chicago. Didn't look like Lewis took much damage. We know he's a durable guy. He'll jump right back in the octagon. I still think for Curtis Blaydes, he should get a big matchup in the form of Cain Velasquez, if Cain Velasquez is so inclined to come back here in 2018. For Derek Lewis, I'd like to see him against Francis Ngannou. Ngannou needs to work on the wrestling, but it's not like Lewis, great takedowns, but still does make those tactical mistakes. You are able to work out from under him. He does take some shots. He does take time off. I think Derek Lewis, Francis Ngannou, in spurts, in one round, could be a fun slugfest. The main event, meant to be a fun fight, and was a fun fight for as long as it lasted. Yancy Medeiros and Donald Cowboy Cerrone, both guys hitting each other hard. It was Medeiros having to hit Cerrone with a 1-2 to wake him up. Cerrone, his boxing looking crisp and much improved on the night. The right hands would be the difference. Early, it was the left hands that were really zinging and catching Medeiros, causing damage under his right eye. But as the fight wore on and Cerrone caught the timing, the right hands would cause the knockdown, and eventually a big right hand is what would send Medeiros stumbling to the floor for the ground and pound finish. A huge victory for Cowboy Cerrone, getting back into that win column. In his own words, it had really been sucky losing 3 fights in a row, or at least remembering it when media would bring it up to him, because he said he's not the kind of person that was thinking about it. When asked what he changed up, nothing. He just went back to work. That's what Donald Cowboy Cerrone has done. The rumors were before this fight he'd be applying his trade once again back down at 155 pounds. After the fight, Donald Cerrone implored again for the reclamation, the creation of a 165-pound division, and I, for one, you couldn't agree more. 165 pounds, let's do away with 170 as welterweight, let's go 165, 175. That definitely needs to happen, going every 10 pounds. We talk about this constantly and consistently. It is the future. It is something that should happen and will happen. The super lightweight division and renaming 175 the welterweight division. Would love to see it, and I believe it will be seen. Imagine a division where we're talking about, I believe, James Vick, Kevin Lee, Donald Cerrone. Even you're thinking, could a Tim Means? You're wondering, do guys go up? Do guys go down? Even probably the perfect division for Nate Diaz. 165 pounds, I think, could be very beneficial. You got a Michel Pizarro who has consistently missed weight. I think there's a huge opportunity, and it'd be a lot healthier for quite a bit of guys to go up to 165 pounds. You got some smaller welterweights that would be able to still make that 165 limit and not feel that they're weakened against these big, strong guys. And you got these dudes who were killing themselves to make 170, saying, oh, 175, and we might see the full potential when they are not fully depleted. So again, 165 and 175, the more fighters get behind it, the more the fans get behind it. Hopefully the UFC will get behind it as California gets behind it, and we can see it transition into the octagon. And really, as we keep mentioning that it's a global sport, into more of these promotions just everywhere. More weight classes. What's next for Donald Cowboy Cerrone? We know Cowboy will fight anyone, anywhere. We don't know if it's going to be at 55 or 70, depending on the matchup that's thrown his way. If you look at 70, possibly Santiago Ponzinibbio, maybe. You don't know how that division's really going to shake out. Could a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson matchup even be appealing? Could you talk Wonderboy into that one? You look at 155 pounds. Edson Barbosa, he's come a long way. Would he like a rematch? You have Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis. What's the winner of that one doing? Ali Aquinta maybe needs a dancing partner. James Vick has just won another fight. Does he get an opportunity for a main event? You could have a Texan or dance with the Cowboy. A lot of options always open for Donald Cerrone, especially when the guy accepts every fight. So you can just best bet it'll be a big opportunity again the next time we see Cowboy, even though, again, we're saying 1-3 in his last 4. Ultra tough competition with this win over Medeiros, who was on a streak. It again just proves that elite level of fighter that Donald Cowboy Cerrone is. Also getting back in the win column this weekend, but inside of the squared circle, Las Cruces' Austin Trout gets a unanimous decision win over Juan Angel. Also his teammate Jennifer Hahn, she continues her win streak. Now that is up to 7 with the unanimous decision win over Elizabeth Crespo. Danny Garcia rebounds from his loss to Keith Thurman with a 9th round knockout victory over Brandon Rios. Did that with a sharp right cross. Huge knockout in that one. B-Win defeats Cassie Rodish at King of the Cage in the feature fight from King of the Cage on their Facebook Live page, which had streaming problems. Killer B is back in the win column, and one could only surmise that a matchup with current King of the Cage atomweight champion Jamie Hinshaw, who's recovering from injury, could be around the corner, as Hinshaw was recently handed loss previously, not recently, but previously had been handed losses from each Rodish and Win, only presuming me speculating that a Win Hinshaw title fight could be in the works when Hinshaw is fully recovered. A pair of Contender Series veterans will be meeting at the Arnold Classic. Alliance MMA on March 3rd will be having Alliance MMA at the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio. Latrell Yee flyweight Jordan Espinosa will be taking on fellow Contender Series vet CJ Hamilton. You also have UFC vet Justin Edwards taking on up-and-coming knockout artist Devontae Smith. 3 fights in all have been announced for that card. This weekend, the UFC is in Orlando, Florida. UFC on Fox 28 This time, the main card at least has ranked fighters on it. We get 3 matchups with ranked fighters. I first off, though, have to echo the sentiments of Cub Swanson. I believe I've said this a couple times. It's a little head scratching to me to see that number 4 in the featherweight division next to Josh Emmett's name, considering he didn't make weight for the fight against Ricardo Lamas. Your opponent doesn't make weight in the UFC, and it's been detrimental for the fighters that have made weight, that have taken the fight. We're talking about a Luke Rockhold. We're talking about a Ricardo Lamas. But Josh Emmett capitalized on his opportunity, knocked out Lamas, and now has a huge opportunity against Jeremy Stevens. This is definitely going to be a scrap. Look for the leg kicks of Stevens to be a big part of the game plan, as he's going to have to take away some of the power of Emmett. Both of these guys have fought at 155 pounds before. This one has fireworks written on it. The co-main event, again, a battle of ranked fighters. You would believe the winner of the fight between number 2 ranked Jessica Andrade and number 5 ranked Tisha Torres, the winner will land themselves in position to challenge for the UFC Strawweight title, getting the winner of Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Rose Namajunas. And I must say, with the incredible improvements that we saw out of Andrade in her wrestling game against Claudia Gadelha, that the powerful pit bull Brazilian is my favorite going into this fight. Torres has done a lot to improve her game. I don't believe that her kicking point style of fighting on the feet is going to be enough against Andrade, who's just going to be too powerful in the wrestling game. I believe the Brazilian has a huge opportunity in front of her to secure that number 1 contendership. Light heavyweights meet. They're both top 10 ranked. This fight has been made a couple times, but it's fallen through the cracks. Ovin St. Preux versus Ilir Latifi. A lot of power from both guys, but I believe Preux has started to come around to showing the experience of being a 30-fight vet in MMA. Latifi, the more experienced wrestler, but I believe that the athleticism that St. Preux has and that length will be able to disrupt Latifi. Ovin St. Preux keeping on that roll of momentum. He's been taking fights, staying active, and really forming into a prospect that who knows what the light heavyweight division will look like after the UFC 226 super fight with Miocic and Cormier. Do we ever see DC back in that division? Could it be time for OSP? And we still have to wait a week. Yes, it'll only be a week though, as February 27th, John Jones has his day with the California State Athletic Commission. What kind of suspensions, revelations, accusations are thrown around at that one? Kicking off the UFC on Fox card, there's Sage Northcutt, there's Paige Van Zandt, Mike Platinum Perry. Win or lose, the UFC believes this guy is all action entertainment. He gets another main card opportunity. The Platinum Knockout Artist will take on Max Griffin. Former bantamweight champion Renan Barão headlines the Fox prelims, taking on New Yorker Brian Keller. Both guys are looking to rebound from losses. You worry about Barão. He has not been the same for a while. Keller, his best option is to keep this one striking because Barão's grappling has actually looked to be the strongest aspect of his game recently. Sarah McMahon takes on Marion Renault. Number 7 versus number 8 rank bantamweights. Contenders at least all over this card. A nicer Fox card than what we saw in North Carolina, I think. Look for the grappling and the wrestling, as it always does, to be a big part of the game for McMahon. But Renault does have the crisper striking, and I feel the more full range of skills in this matchup. Alan Jabouin always comes out to put on a show. His striking is better. He cannot get trapped on the ground with Ben Saunders. If he does, he'll get submitted. That one's a welterweight matchup. The early Fight Pass prelims, 2 technical grapplers in Gilbert Burns and Olivier Aubin-Mercier meet in the featured fight. Not to mention the bantamweight division. You're going to see Russell Doane against Ronnie Yahya. Doane cannot get into a false sense of security and get trapped on the ground with Yahya, who is just a constrictor once you touch the mat with him. It's UFC on Fox 28 from Orlando, Florida. On the local side of things here in New Mexico this weekend at the Buffalo Thunder Resort and Casino, we have Jackson's MMA Series 24, undefeated Jess Martinez versus Royce Sacido. Sacido, heavy-handed, hard-working. Martinez has wrestling credentials, jiu-jitsu credentials, and that striking is starting to catch up. The co-main event, you have Cody Hofstetter, great kicks, solid jiu-jitsu, taking on heavy-handed Enrique Gonzalez. CageMinds.com, we have interviews going up with Mark Matthew McDill. We have already up with Jesse Morehouse, with the returning 4 years away from the amateur scene, Eric Dodson. A interview also up, audio version with Roy Sacido. Check out ProView Network's YouTube channel and the Red Menace TV show for my interviews with Jess Martinez and Ozzy Chavez. Can also announce this Saturday, we had been announcing there was going to be a Tough Man contest in Hobbs presented by School of Hard Knocks Promotions. Unfortunately, that has been canceled. They do intend to reschedule it, but no date set yet. King of the Cage this weekend, Energetic Pursuit, is in Ontario, California. We have interviews up with defending King of the Cage Junior Flyweight Champion Fit NHB's Tim Sosa, who will be defending against UFC vet Ruben Duran. We also have an interview with Cynthia Sin Arceo, who will be fighting for the vacant King of the Cage women's strawweight title. Check those out. Attending interviews for people being in action this weekend. CageMinds.com, Cage Minds MMA show on YouTube. Also remember boxing at the Route 66 Casino. Legacy Boxing Promotions presents Route to Glory. That is March 17th. The Las Cruces Convention Center will play host to American Fight League's Southwest Brawl 7, March 31st. We got articles for all these events up at CageMinds.com. Art of War Promotions, Art of War in Clovis, April 28th. That's more MMA action. And in Clovis, also May 12th, School of Hard Knocks Promotions will be back with Chaos in Clovis too. We'll keep you up to date on details for these events on our local scene as they become available. This has been Caged Minds Uncensored. Again, a shout out to Mac10 MMA CK10. This has been Caged Minds. I thank you for listening.